What's going on, awesome people? Welcome to another episode of Awesome People Instagram Live, where I basically have some informal, casual chit chats with the most awesome Persian entrepreneurs, creators, artists, mental health experts, and here we are on Friday. Excuse me, I wish I was Friday, Tuesday, December 14th. And for those of you who don't know, about 2 weeks ago, I decided to make a little pledge where I basically have 31 straight days of Awesome People Instagram Lives, and here we are. It's day number 14th, and my guest today is a very special guest who's a fellow Washingtonian and also a longtime friend, and I'm very excited to have her. Her name is Nikki Emadi. She is a therapeutic life coach, and she is a therapeutic coach who specializes in children, adolescents, and parenting, and she's extremely passionate about advocating for mental health, so that's what today's topic is going to be about. Also, for those of you who don't know, on December 29th, United Conquer presents Zendegi, a 5-hour special Persian music live stream edition. It's going to be great. We have some big news. We're going to be kicking off another season of Zendegi, featuring our Persian DJs, DJ Kia, DJ Sam, DJ Yazdan, nothing but Persian music. So mark your calendars, December 29th. The promo is going to come out soon, and hope to have you a part of that program, at least virtually. And then also, for those of you who don't know, I usually like to start these IG lives with 10 seconds of gratitude. We live such crazy lives, always so much work, so much family, so much friends, so much hecticness that, you just have to kind of tune it out for about 10 seconds in the hopes that it does a little bit of a restart. So if you want to join me for just 10 seconds of counting your blessings. It does you wonders, I believe. At least it does for me. So hopefully it does for you as well. 10 seconds of gratitude. Here we go. All right. Thank you so much for joining me in that. And as always, I'm grateful for all of you for joining, whether it's now live or whether it's on YouTube, which, by the way, this episode goes on our YouTube channel, Unite and Conquer. Please, please, please check it out. Click that subscribe button. We're trying to build a massive community of awesome Persians just like you who want to just become better in every aspect of life and also be of service to the community, strengthen our community, put a spotlight on some awesome Persians so that we can thrive together and just, make the best out of this short life that we're in. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring on my lovely guest, Nikki, and I see that she hasn't clicked the button yet. So I'm going to ask Nikki Jun to please press that plus sign, get on that request to join so I can patch you in. And there she is, the lovely, the fabulous, the one and only. Hi, Sefida. I know it feels like Friday. I appreciate you relating to what I'm saying here. Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
What's going on, awesome Persian?
I'm good. How are you? Obviously, technical difficulties from the very start. That's
No
how I do
problem.
it.
You make up for it with some very beautiful lighting in the background.
Thank
So you
you.
got
Yeah,
some nice uplights going on.
it's my plant lights.
Plant lights. Oh, like literally it helps for the generation of their
That's right.
That's beautiful. I like it. So you have a
Yeah,
little
I love it.
you have a little botanical garden back there.
I really do. Yeah, I don't want to move my setup or else I would show you.
No, don't do that. You're just fine. So, Nikki, obviously, I've known you for a long time, and but a lot of people might not know you. So, if you don't mind, just give a little brief background of yourself, especially career-wise, where you've been and where you're at now in your career, please.
Sure. So professionally, as you've sort of been saying, I am a therapeutic coach. I work with children, families, and parents, mostly parenting coaching. I have a master's degree from the Boston Graduate School of Psychoanalysis. So I did all of my training and all of my schooling in Boston. But of course, like a lot of folks, I wanted to come back and be close to family. So came back to DC and I sort of put the licensing on hold. So which is why I kind of went into coaching because I still was able to use all of my therapeutic skills, but I was also able to, practice basically according to the state of Maryland. Let's put it that way. And then I've also had my day job, as you would say it. I've been working at a leading nonprofit in the DC area. I'm the deputy director of Yellow Ribbon Fund, which is an organization that helps caregivers of veterans. So I'm very excited to sort of
And
promote them as well.
and you just got that promotion too to level up in that bit. So congratulations on
Thank
that.
you
That's
so
awesome.
much.
That's
Thank you.
awesome.
That was really nice of you to say. I was very excited about that. Yeah, thank you. So that's sort of where I am professionally. Personally, actually, like a lot of people that you've had on, or a lot of immigrants that we know, moved around a lot. I was born in England, lived in Nebraska, of all places. I know.
You don't see too many Persians going to Nebraska.
You really don't. I think.
You took a little U-turn there.
Oh yeah, well, my parents heard praise for that. Let's not blame anybody. We're going to praise the parents. So my parents
So
heard praise.
they were the original Cornhuskers, huh?
They really were, absolutely. Yeah, I think the Emadis and my mom's side of the family were the only ones.
Nice.
But after that, my dad thought, let's go back to Iran. So I actually lived in Iran from the time I was 7 until around 11. Came back to the DC area, and so DC area is really my home because it's the longest amount of time I
Hmm.
spent in one place, obviously. And then did undergrad in Texas. My sister lives in Texas, as you know. Both my sisters live in Texas now. So we're
Nice.
kind of all over the place.
I love it. So I remember, like in the past year or so, anytime that I've had episodes that had to do with mental health, you were always messaging on the side. I know you're very passionate about it. Before we talk about all the things that you do within the field of mental health, like what was the catalyst of you becoming so passionate about it? What was it that like really captivated you? Kind of touch on that if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. And I think it kind of goes hand in hand about what I wanted to speak about with regards to advocacy, which is being really transparent about your own story. So for me, from the time I was very young, I remember having some physical symptoms that couldn't be figured out, or even around 10 years old. There were headaches or dizzy spells or things that, the family quite couldn't figure out what was going on.
Mm.
And so it wasn't until I got older and I started looking into psychology, and actually one of my high school classes is that I learned I may have depression. I may have this serious mental health disorder that my parents don't know about. They don't know how to treat it. At that time, nobody really knew in our community, especially.
Yeah.
So, it kind of started there with my own taking care of myself. And then that grew into going into college and graduate school as I learned more about it. And one of the things about being a therapist that I think it's important to highlight is that if you're a good therapist, you really should have your own therapist. It's one of the things that they encourage. It's one of the things that in training we were encouraged to do. And so, that sort of was a way for me to tell my parents, well, it's part of my schooling. I got to go to therapy. As a result of that, my family learned a lot. When one person goes to therapy, the whole family sort of gets involved. So I think it was
You
both.
know what? Can I pause you there for a second? Because you said something
Absolutely.
that I want to definitely touch on. You just mentioned that when one person does the whole family, which is great if it happens in the Emadi family, but I've realized that's not usually the case. I know
Mhm.
people that they are on a mission for self-improvement, to get that therapist. They tell their friends about it, and like yet like their parents are still like stubborn about it, and they're like, no, that's crazy. Why would you want to go talk to another person? They're crazy too, or something. And I'm just saying that with all due respect as far as like how the Persian mindset is. And that's why I appreciate having these conversations with you and other people, is because we have to get this conversation like more and more out, so we don't have parents talking such nonsense. And so like, so your family seems to have been open to it, right? So that made life a little bit easier, I believe, right? Or tell me about it.
Well, it's a really good point that you bring up. And I should clarify what I meant by when one person is in it, the other people tend to, I actually don't even know what word I used, but what I meant to say was they're affected by it in some way or
Mm,
another, right?
mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to lie. Actually, my mom's probably watching me and she'll be the first one to admit, I know, hi, mom.
Durud bhai shoma.
She'll be the first one to admit that, of course, it's a learning curve. But
Yeah.
and you're right that the Imadi family was a little bit different because I'm stubborn as hell, and I wouldn't let it go, and I wanted them to understand me. And hell or high water, you're gonna understand what I'm going through. You're gonna understand what I learned, and you're gonna understand. But you're absolutely right that one of the biggest things in our community, and one of the reasons I advocate for it, is because there's still such a stigma. There is a huge stigma, not just in our community, in American communities as well, but especially ours. because of what you said, this idea of being crazy. Like, are you crazy? Why do you need to go? It doesn't make sense. You should be thankful for what you have. We sacrificed everything for you. How dare you not be grateful or happy? So the idea is to help our parents understand that it has nothing to do with being grateful or happy, because depressed people can be happy. Depression and happiness are very different things. In fact, depression and sadness are very different things. And of course I could talk about it for hours, but that is what I wanted to touch on in response to what you said, which is, we need to keep talking more about it.
So for you, you're passionate about making sure you give them more information, options, the tips and tricks, I guess. So if somebody is kind of on the fence, or like their parents have been dismissing, like, what are you getting a therapist for? Like, what information, what do you want them to know? What do you want to share with them, so that we get more people to get the guidance, the support, the sounding board that they need to kind of like get back on track if they feel that they're not?
It's a really good question. I think first and foremost, it's um, being in a place where you're ready. So if I were to start therapy, and I'm going to start therapy, I need to be ready to do it wholeheartedly so that I can defend my stance, even though it's not something we should defend. But again, with our parents, we may have to. So first and foremost, be ready to do it so that you're ready to do it for you, so that even if you don't give an explanation to your parents, you're okay with going to therapy. But let's say we want them to learn. Let's say we also want them to be on board. Let's say we want to encourage them to go themselves. Then I would compare mental health to health in terms of, Mom, Dad, what would you do if, God forbid, you got diabetes? You would need to go to a doctor to help you regulate that diabetes with diet first, right? So therapy is the first line of defense, equal to diet. What would happen if that diet didn't work? You would need to take a little medication and continue your diet. So if you go to therapy, so if you can sort of equate mental health to health and bring up examples of why it's important, or even working out, we need to exercise our bodies. Why not exercise our brains? And that's for people who are struggling, right? Or have some severe symptoms. I would encourage everybody, people who are just looking within, they want to grow, they want to learn, and so explaining to our parents, or just like I did to my parents, I want to learn more about myself. And there are professionals there out there who can help me do that. It has nothing to do with you guys or what you provided for me or what you didn't. I just want to learn. I just want to grow. I think that's sort of the steps I would take.
And like, at what age do you think is a good time for like, there's now, I feel like now teenagers, they've grown up so fast. I mean, I look at 16, 17, 18-year-olds, they they see so much of the world right now that we probably didn't see when we were 14, 15, 16, primarily because of social media. So the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? They're just more aware, they're more exposed to it. Is there a certain time where, like, you would say, hey, listen, by the way, if your child is 13, 14 years old, these are the signals you should be looking for, encourage them to go speak to somebody else? Or how does that conversation even get started during those very critical years of somebody becoming an adult?
That's an extremely good question, but I would even sort of, for everyone who's watching or will be watching, I would encourage them to think of it in terms of all age groups, and think of it in terms of behavior change. So let's say your child is having some sort of behavior change, and you're sort of chalking it up to, they're not listening to me, they're being so bad, I don't understand why he's talking back to me, I don't understand why she's hitting so and so. That's when I would encourage professional help. Why not? Parents always say things like, we weren't born with a manual. That's very true, but there are lots of manuals out there right now, right?
That is,
There's someone
yeah.
to help you with that now.
And
Same with
go
the
ahead.
teenager, and so on and so forth.
So I love that answer, actually. And so, but speaking of, there's a lot of manuals or experts out there. Like, what do you suggest? Imagine that you're like fully booked up and you're not available. What do you recommend as far as, okay, if you want to choose somebody to guide you, and whether it's a coach or a therapist? I mean, like, from our side, there's so many different titles and names, and like, you just don't know who is a
Yeah.
good fit. So how do you break it down? What's the filtering process? Because even before you answer that question, one of my guests that I had, Ida, very early on in the month,
That's right.
I then found out that she's only licensed in California. So even virtually, she has ethical limitations or whatever
That's
to
right.
not be able to practice. So kind of touch on that. Is that okay? Well, these are the things that you should be looking at to at least filter.
Yeah, and that's one of the main challenges that I'm faced with. That people come to me. The one of the main concerns. There's a lot. It's very difficult to distinguish between a psychologist, a therapist, a psychiatrist, There's tons and tons of titles. The best for me, the best and easiest thing to remember is to go to psychologytoday.com, and I'm giving you just real world sort of practical advice on this, because the detailed aspect of it would take up a lot of your time. So the practical advice would be go to psychologytoday.com, and they have a filter, they have a search engine. So that search engine will allow you to put in very basic information. Where do you live? What type of insurance do you have? Which age group are you looking for? Would you like a male or a female? Would you like someone who prescribes medicine? Would you like someone who does talk therapy? So that's a very good place to start, because you can filter out a lot of the stuff that you do know, and the things that you don't know. I encourage you to call me, any therapist, any coach, anybody that you know, anyone who's been to therapy, so anybody in your community that you think has a reach to that, that would be your second line of defense. So I think that's the easiest way.
And psychologytoday.com, just out of curiosity, like who's behind that? Is this a governmental agency? Is this like the number one business? I don't know what it
Yeah,
is.
so Psychology Today is a magazine. It's a very popular magazine that's been around forever. And back in the day, they used to have, their therapists featured in the magazine.
Mhm.
So, as far as 20 years ago, when I first started, actually, when I graduated and first started working, it had gone online. So even at that point, people were using, when they would put in find a therapist, those words are actually, I think Psychology Today owns those words, or the algorithm is
Mm,
something to where if you put in a search, it actually goes to Psychology Today.
got
So
it.
to answer your question, it's a magazine, but it's very helpful.
Okay, so it's a reputable, respected.
Hmm.
This is what all the professionals kind of lead, or
Absolutely.
should be. Okay. So what about like you particularly when it comes to, and I don't know what percentage of your clients are Persian versus not Persian, but if you could try to compartmentalize the Persians, what are they coming to you for the most? What are the number one or number two challenges that they're coming to from a Persian standpoint? Just because that's a majority of our community, so I want to be of value to them.
Absolutely. And the majority of my clients are Persian. They're very young because of the age group I work with. So the challenges that they have are communication, whether it's communication with their parents or communication with their friends. And what I find that those two go hand in hand.
And I'm
So
sorry, when you say young, could you give an age range? I apologize for cutting off. What age range? When you say young, are we talking about children or teenagers?
currently, I have teenagers. Currently,
Okay,
and the reason is I have a very select few clients that I have, and as you know, I have a day job, so I do both at the moment.
got it,
So right now, I have a handful of clients, and they're all teenagers, coincidentally.
got it. Okay,
However, I have worked with children. When I work with children, the parents are involved, so it's usually twofold. It's parenting and child therapeutic coaching. And then I also deal with young adults sometimes. So whenever a child comes to me, it's both the parents, the adolescents are usually by themselves. And obviously, if they're 18, they're definitely by themselves. So currently, it's communication. And there's always a thread, there's always a commonality. Whether it's issues with my boyfriend, issues with my girlfriend, issues with friends, they really stem from the first experience you have in communication. Even when you have a first love, people tend to forget that your first love was your mother or your father, and the first way you communicated with these objects of desire, as we say, in the field, it's your mother or father. So that's why it's so important to help them understand where that lack of communication or their break in communication is happening. And of course, in our culture, most of the time it is a cultural barrier. And I'll say that, Iman, because I've also seen, second generation parents around our age who are very educated, who read their books, who go to therapy, but there's something about our culture that's very deeply embedded in us. It's almost in our blood, you know.
Mm.
And I have to say that unconsciously, it's a way for us to hold on to being Iranian. And I usually try to help them see that there are other ways to hold on to our Iranianness and our culture, you know, and especially with the ones who have married outside of our culture. I mean, my sister, both of them outside married out of their culture. And so, you know, I have lots of examples in my family and I have lots of examples in my practice.
What would you say to Persian parents that are like the new generation of Persian parents, if they have like a teenager right now? What are some of the couple major advices that you have? Because you know, a teenager, I feel like even under quote unquote normal circumstances, it is one of the most difficult series of years to go through. You know, like
Yeah.
and so what kind of advice do you have for them? What kind of red flags? I know you mentioned earlier that if they're kind of like lashing out and stuff, but in general, just advice on parenting. What are a couple of the things, take home points that you could share with us?
Sure. I mean, I think obviously every child is different and every family is different. That's a given. You know, we all know that. But if I were to generalize, I would say go with a place of empathy and compassion. Even if it's going against your rules or against your, even if it's going against your morals, there is a reason that child is behaving as they are, you know, or communicating as they are. I feel like children, even adolescents, even young adults, to be honest with you, I have to think about just myself, you know, as an example. There are times that we don't know how to communicate quite effectively with our parents. So I would always say approach with empathy, approach with a sense of compassion and kindness. And now I'm forgetting the word like arum budan, which I don't know why I know it's calm, but it doesn't quite
Yeah,
have the same
yeah,
feeling.
right. But it's calm.
Autumn.
Calm is the closest one. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I think, and maybe even put it on you. It's very difficult for parents to do this, Iman. One of the biggest challenges I have is honestly with the parents. You know, it's easier to work with the children and the adolescents. The parents seem to think that a part of their pride will be hurt, or they're giving something up, or someone is taking something away from them if they can just put it on them for a minute. You know, imagine if a parent came to you and said, that was really mean of me, wasn't it, or something like that. Like, parents don't, that's not the first instinct. But
Yeah.
if a parent approached it that way, the child would be very surprised and maybe would turn around and say, that's okay, mom, that's okay, dad, you know, no, you weren't that mean, but this is why that happened, instead of, how dare you do this, you know, the regular the
Of course.
regular way. I don't know how to put it, you know what I mean.
How what are your thoughts about social media and at that age of 11, 12, 13, 14 years old? Like, how worried are you that social media will have massive negative implication? And is there something that we can even do at this point, or is this just kind of like a forest fire? I want to gauge your concern about social media.
Yeah, it's really scary. It's like, honestly, even thinking about my nephew and my niece, you know, they're only 5 and 3, and I'm already petrified at what it's going to be like. So it's frightening. It's really scary for parents, but I think that I would adhere to the same rule as I would with adults, which is limit the time, filter the content, because you need for the child to learn how to navigate through the world of social media and navigate through the online world. It has become the way that people run their businesses. It has become a very essential tool for communication. So I wouldn't deprive them of it, but I would set lots of boundaries with time and with content. But again, I would say the same thing for adults. We can get overwhelmed ourselves.
Okay, great. So now if somebody wants to actually speak to you, so they have to be only in Maryland area, correct? Is that what it is? Like, so they have to be physically living in Maryland, and then they could do they do like virtual meetings with you, or is it in person? How does it work with you particularly?
So the great thing about being a therapeutic coach is that I don't actually have to be in Maryland. If I were licensed, then that would be a different story. I'm
Hmm.
working towards my licensure right now, but a therapeutic coach actually can accept all kinds of clients from anywhere. I actually see a client in Iran, believe it or not. So we have a virtual session every week in Iran. Yes, they can contact me through Instagram. I'm very receptive. I don't have a lot of content, and it's because I'm working all the time. So just
Yeah.
because I don't have a lot of content doesn't mean I'm not on. I'm on. I will respond right away. Even if people have questions, they don't want a session, they just want some help, I'm more than willing. I'm happy to do it. It honestly is my honor to help our community. So bring it on,
I love
please.
that. Is there something else that you were passionate about that you wanted to make sure that you shared with us here? I want to make sure that we walk away with you having shared everything from your expertise, past experiences, that is conveyed to our audience.
I mean, I think we touched on a lot of things that you and I had discussed. So the advocacy is the number one, the communication. I think the only thing I missed when we were speaking about communication is one of the ways in order to have a more effective style is to really take care of yourself. So this idea of self-care and self-love has become a little bit cloudy and muddy. It's become a little bit woo-woo for some people. For other people it's become this point of contention between being selfish and then taking care of oneself. So that is something I'd like to touch on, and I'd love the opportunity to talk about it more, and maybe this will inspire me to make more content about it. But I think
Sure.
taking care of yourself is the most important way. Being able to say no, setting up boundaries, all of these things require that you are mentally healthy, and you can only be healthy if you take care of yourself. And that's what people mean by self-care and self-love. It's not about going to the spa, it's not about having a girls night or a date night.
Yeah.
It's a lot more in depth. So that's one of the things I just wanted to bring to people's attention.
I have a question just out of curiosity, and that is, why don't we have more men that are in this field? Do you have any kind of hypothesis about that?
It's the same in American culture as well. Because even Iranian and American, there are more men, more women. I feel like it's 80% to 20% or something. It's an ongoing debate. The debate has gone to the point of being, offensive, to the point of being scientific. So
Hmm.
to be honest with you, I don't have a good answer for that. But my own theory is men, there's still a stigma. Men just don't feel comfortable talking about their feelings. I
Hmm.
think men would love to be able to help other people. I think men would love to be able to help their peers or children. But I think it's the stigma that needs to be broken, and men need to feel more comfortable just being in their own feelings, let alone being able to contain someone else's feelings.
I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. I don't know how you feel about him, but like that guy is just, I don't know. I'm like, man, I need more guys out there too. There's so many females.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing with self-help and therapy, there is also a little bit of the cloudiness that I was talking about. But my thing is, whoever helps you, whoever motivates you,
Yeah,
whoever allows you to get in touch with your feelings, more power to you and them. I'm a big fan of whoever's able to do that.
that's great. Awesome. Well, Nikki, I really appreciate you not just joining me here tonight, but all the nice messages that you were sending in the
Thank you.
past few months. I'm glad that we finally had the chance to do this because it's been a long time coming, and I'm
Pre-pandemic, yeah, of
yeah, I know. And so I'm glad that it all worked out, that we got to pick your brain a little bit and really appreciate what you do for the community.
course.
It's great. And I hope that you continue to uh, have more Persian clients because that just means that more people are taking it seriously and they're improving themselves in all aspects. So God bless you for everything you're doing and good luck with everything. And hopefully people will message you with questions and stuff so you can continue to help other people.
Thank you so much, Iman. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll
Appreciate
talk
you.
soon.
For sure. Proud of you, girl. Take care.
All
Have a
right.
good night.
Bye-bye.
And tomorrow, as Nikki signs off, tomorrow I have another special guest, which actually Nikki knows as well. It's Rumi Love. He's a singer, songwriter, and LGBTQIA plus advocate. I love this guy. We actually used to have performances in DC, and I remember at least on one occasion he performed at Warner Theater at one of our events that we did, and he's got so much passion, so much love, and for everything that he does. Super nice guy, and he's on a mission to change the world, but especially essentially changing the way that Iranians they view individuals in LGBTQ community, and especially empowering young Iranians to be able to just be comfortable in their own skin and be authentic and, as he put it, without being persecuted for who they are. So looking forward to having you, my friend, tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, hear his story. And I wanted the music video. Man, Rumi, I know you're still there. The name of the music video that he has, I think it's like March in the Streets. I'm sorry if it's wrong, but I'll make sure to put it in tomorrow's description. He's got a really cool music video that he created in July of 2020 in the streets of DC. Very powerful. I can't believe I missed it earlier on, but I definitely loved it, enjoyed it yesterday as I was doing some more research on him. But please tune in tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. Rumi love. And thank you again to Nikki Emadi. And if you're just joining, you don't know what's going on, this is part of a series where every single day in December, I've been having the pleasure of having Instagram Live with the most awesome Persians that I know. So hopefully you've been enjoying this. You can go to the Unite and Conquer YouTube channel to check out the rest of the episodes. I also have a podcast called the Awesome People Podcast. Have had some great conversations on that podcast as well. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. In the meantime, please be kind, be empathetic, be grateful, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. Much love, guys. Take care.